Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Subject to any important news from Games Workshop, which just can't wait, this will be the final video of 2024 on this channel. And it's an excellent opportunity to look back at the year that was for Warhammer the Old World. But before I do, I just want to say a quick word of thanks to everyone watching this video, and indeed anyone who has watched any of the videos I've produced in the last year. I'm really grateful for the time you've spent engaging with the videos, whether it's you've commented, liked, subscribed to the channel, or merely spent a few minutes of your time listening to my thoughts on the game or following my Warhammer the Old World journey. So thank you very much, and if you celebrate, I hope you have a great festive period and a very happy new year. With that being said, let's get on with the show. And it all starts in January of 2024. It's the game we've been waiting so long for after all of the years of rumour, of speculation, of discussion. We got our hands on an actual product. Except in a lot of cases, we didn't. What do I mean by this? Well, the pre-order and release weekends were a little bit of a disaster. The pre-order for most of the models and all of the rules, etc., sold out in, about an hour in the UK. Number of local gaming stores sold out of their quota in a matter of minutes. In fact, a lot of local gaming stores, certainly here in the UK, were reporting that the amount of product they thought they were getting was slashed at the last minute. And all of this led to an awful lot of people being disappointed, not being able to get their hands on releases on, release day. Support release, Warhammer the Old World was pushed heavily at Warhammer World, and some of the guys I knew went along for the ride. All of the things I've seen and heard from the reports at the time suggest that Games Workshop hugely underestimated the interest in Warhammer the Old World. They really struggled to keep product on the shelves, and there were thousands of people in attendance when perhaps it sounds like they were expecting maybe a few hundred at most. Now, as a bit of an aside, it wasn't just the Warhammer Old World pre-release at the start of the year which struggled. There were problems across a number of pre-orders affecting both Warhammer the Old World release and subsequent releases as Arcane Journals and models started to come out, but also other games. There was a story from, I believe, Australia, where for a Horus Heresy release, where there was a limited edition book that had been signed, being purchased in its entirety by one person. Now, the idea of the new Games Workshop website and queuing system was to prevent this sort of thing from happening, but someone used queue jumping bots, which then got in, bought everything, allowing them to sell at massively inflated prices. It wasn't a good start. And at the time of release of Warhammer the Old World, we also saw some dwarven dice, giving everyone really the thought that the next army is going to be the dwarves and that they'll be coming pretty quickly because we've seen the leaks, right? No. The next army coming down the track was actually the orcs and goblins. And it was here that we saw really the first of the battalion boxes and what they were supposed to look like. Orcs and goblins coming out in March of 2024, so about 2 months later. So whereas the launch boxes for Battalions and Tomb Kings, really useful boxes coming with the rules, some useful characters and all sorts of different miniatures, the Battalion box sets were designed very differently and designed to really give you some core stuff to build out of. The first 3 releases in that system consisting of mostly core troops with 2 special choice options, the special choice option being duplicated. For the orcs and goblins, that was a block of orcs and a big pile of common goblins as the core options, along with 2 boar chariots. Now, as the meta's settled down a bit, some would argue has become pretty static. It's turned out that the stuff in the box is not really seeing play for a lot of armies. Now, the dwarf box then followed a little bit later. That box set, it was a bit better because you could equip guys with crossbows, and you had a couple of gyrocopters, which were being seen as a real key thing for a lot of Warhammer Dwarf armies at the time. In summer, so we're talking in around end of August time, the Warhammer gods smiled upon us once again, and we saw the warriors of chaos. Things seem to be progressing at a reasonable rate, although some big chunky delays kicking in. But then came the big news. The Warriors of Chaos were going to be the final major release of 2024. An army released in September time was going to be it until 2025, when we see the Empire of Man coming out. Now, we all knew right from the outset, despite any hopes and we might have had otherwise, Warhammer the Old World was always going to be a specialist game. It's a secondary game. It's not Warhammer 40,000. It's not Age of Sigmar. It's not going to receive that level of support, that level of internal resource. But I think there was a realistic expectation that maybe once a quarter we'd see a major release, so an Arcane Journal, a couple of bits and bobs coming out on a fairly steady basis. And we've not seen that at all. We've seen big delays. In fact, it does seem that Warhammer the Old World probably should have actually come out in 2023, but got delayed by other issues. Now, all of this, I think, can't have done anything but hurt the game. Why so? Well, because momentum gets lost. I had a look a little while ago at what sort of tournaments were going on around the world as reported by the Metahammer, and there's a lot of events happening. But those events are small. You're looking at 10, 11 people as an average. Some of the events being recorded only have 4 attendees. Now, I've just said it's not a Warhammer 40,000, but I would bet my bottom dollar that even a small Warhammer 40,000 event is going to be larger than a lot of the Warhammer Old World events out there. This does suggest that the player base is not quite where it would be, and given the huge amounts of hype, how quickly everything sold out when the game was released back in January, along with those first early releases across March, April, it just smacks that the game's not as in healthy a place as perhaps would have been anticipated at that point in time. A few words perhaps on my own personal journey through the year when it comes to Warhammer the Old World. The big piece to start with was really targeting a tournament in the summer. As part of a Tale of Many Gamers project, got together with some clubmates to chart our process of building an army, learning the game and getting ready for the event. And that was a lot of fun. It gave me a chance to try some different sort of content as we went along. I've also tried to involve really my community, for want of a better phrase, as we've gone along with the launch of my first worldwide Warhammer campaign. That doesn't really massively seem to have taken off. I still like the idea. I just think that perhaps the community is not big enough to really get that to bite. Lessons learned throughout. So happy to plug forward with other concepts as we go. If we start now looking forward a bit into 2025, we know that the Empire of Man is coming next. We've had information from Games Workshop about what will be coming as part of those releases. So we know there's going to be an Arcane Journal. We know what some of the models are going to look like. Games Workshop have said there's some new units to come, that ones we haven't seen in the old Warhammer games, and we've not really seen any of those models yet. We've seen information about one of the special characters. That sounds quite exciting, as at time of recording in early December. Empire is going to be followed up by the High Elves, leaving just the Beasts of Chaos and the Wood Elves to complete all of the 9 factions which are being supported as mainline games in Warhammer the Old World. We've also seen some interesting information about the Throne of Skulls tournament and how Games Workshop intends to modify their own rules for that event, reducing the number of wizards, for example, that are potentially going to be flying around. And now it's coming into the world of speculation. It would make sense, given that we've told early 2025 for Empire, hot on their heels are going to be High Elves, that by, say, the middle of next year, we could expect all 9 factions to be released. And then what happens? Well, if Games Workshop does keep to a reasonable timetable with its releases in 2025, it then has to think about what next. Now, it may slow down, it may drag out the releases over the next year. If there's 4 factions, 1 a quarter could be the way it goes. But we know there's been consideration given to other factions. Cathay and Kislev have been talked about right from the start when it comes to Games Workshop talking about Warhammer the Old World. So I wonder if there'll be some way of thinking about moving the story forward. Back in the days of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, we got campaign packs, such as the Grudge of Drong, for example. Little supplements that you didn't need to play the main game, but could be used to just make things a little bit more interesting on the tabletop. They could be used to move the game towards the Great Chaos Incursion and to start bringing more units, more characters to life, keeping the game slowly moving forward through the timeline, capturing a few of the big events and really giving us something to get our teeth into. Back in the day, of course, there were the great summer campaigns, and I am looking back at a large number of years when it comes to this, and I think it would make sense for something along those lines. It would be interesting to see how they played it out, but it would be a great way of getting people playing the game and really trying to re-establish that momentum. Will any of this happen? Quite frankly, who knows? So there we have a review of 2024. It has been a seismic year for fans of the old world because we've got to play the game we wanted to play for so long. Love it or hate the things that aren't quite what you were hoping for. We've got a current and supported game once again. And that is something I'm very pleased with, as it's allowed me to relive the nostalgia years of playing those sorts of games. All that remains for me to say is thank you for listening. If you've got any comments around your experiences over the previous year, do let me know down in the comments below. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you really enjoyed the festive period. I am returned to the old world. Have a great day.